If you wanted to wait, do you think you could pinpoint a reason why you didn't feel you could communicate that in that moment?
I'm Camila Florez. I am from Colombia, Bogota, and I am 26 years old.
You don't remember anything that happened after he walked you back to your place?
Only small fragments.
I'm really grateful because I love that it stands for like being, Latino, and I love everything that this program stands for. And actually, the person who told me about this is a really good friend named Alex Segura. So, Alex, if you're watching, thank you for telling me about this amazing festival because I really am grateful to, I'm grateful for all of the opportunities that it's giving me, whether it's a platform and like some money to make other projects. Like that is like so amazing, and I'm grateful to just have it out there because I think I would have like held on to this for a long time. So I'm super grateful to my team. I'm grateful to Alex Rigolato and my DP, and my whole entire cast and crew, Zane, my producer Ashley, Jet, Duplass brothers for encouraging me to make this film. I'm grateful to my mom for always being supportive about, my career. Like I'm really lucky that I had parents, and my dad. Like I'm really grateful that I had parents that always supported me to be an artist. Like they weren't like, oh, you need to be, I don't know, a doctor. I never had that. And I'm so grateful because I don't think I would be here without my entire family and friends and all the support. So thank you so much for everyone who wanted me to tell this story because I really wouldn't have.
Something bothering you?
No.
I've always been super fascinated by film since I was a child. Like I always just like I was really lucky. I grew up with like a father and a grandma that loved movies. And so that was kind of like where I started to find my style, and they loved watching really dramatic, artsy movies growing up. So I was watching like very like intellectual films and talking about it with my dad afterwards. And then it wasn't until I grew up in theater from the age of 12 to 18. And then I decided when I was 18, okay, I don't think I want to act. I think what I actually want to do is like something in cinema, but I don't really know what. So then I went to film school in Atlanta because that's where I grew up after, I moved from Colombia when I was 5. And so, yeah, so I went to film school. I still had no idea what I wanted to do, but I did an internship where part of the internship was that you had to make a short film. And they told me, they were like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to direct, but I had no idea how to direct at that time at all. But I loved the entire process of that during college. And then the owner of this studio at the time became my mentor. And so he was, he had worked in LA and he was a development executive for like 20 years. So I think for a while I was really stuck on the idea of possibly being a development executive because I was like too afraid to say like, oh, I want to write and direct. I think that was like too scary at the time. So I was like, oh, I want to be like I don't know, I want to do something in like more corporate film. And so then after I finished that internship, I graduated college and I moved to France because I did a study abroad. Like it was basically a master's program, but I didn't finish it. But I lived in France for like 8 months through, being in France and kind of like learning my style and what I wanted to do. That really kind of like solidified like my style and taste and like the kind of stories I wanted to tell. And so after I finished my time in France, I was a director's assistant on a TV show for 2 to 3 months, I think, in Atlanta. And then after that, I moved cross country with my mom in my car and was like, okay, I'm going to move to LA. Like I didn't have a job yet, but I moved here and I moved to Venice Beach. That's where I lived. And then after that, I within like 2 weeks, I got a job at a production company called Duplass Brothers Productions. And it was, because of my mentor, he set up a lot of like meetings for me. So he like sent like 50 emails to everybody he knew in Hollywood and was like, you have to work with her. Like, she's amazing. Like, and I'm to this day, like forever so grateful to him for believing in me and being a mentor to me. And so that's how I landed my first job in LA. And through working at Duplass, like that's where I met like a lot of like the people that helped make this movie were my coworkers who became like my good friends. And so they pushed me to make the movie. They were like, because I had so many conversations with them at the time where I was like, I don't think I want to just be an executive. I don't see myself just working in an office forever. Like I feel like I'm meant to do more. And so I was really lucky that I worked for a company that was about making movies with barely any money. Like that's literally, they're indie filmmakers. I mean, so they know exactly how to make movies for a lower budget and like get a lot of creatives that are passionate about it. So it was good to learn that model. And then from there I made Power Play, and that's kind of like what led me to here right now.
How do you feel about how he acted the morning after?
Disappointed. He was completely different than the night before.
I think right now, because of just where I'm at in my life, it's very much like coming of age, a little bit more romantic and rose-colored lens. Like I think I'm still at that point where I am experimenting with, kind of this loss of innocence, like transitioning into a woman, like themes on self-discovery and like really growing up. So I think like coming of age, like, I think of, Greta Gerwig in the beginning of her career. I think of films like Before Sunrise. That was one of my favorite movies for a really long time. And that was very inspired by like this film was very much inspired by that film specifically, because even when we get to Before Sunset, that's a different lens that we're looking at because they're a lot older. So I think I'm still kind of in that like Before Sunrise, place in my filmmaking where it's, you're viewing it through the lens of a 20, at the time I was like 23 when I wrote this film. So I was 23 years old and I had a lot of, different beliefs about love and men and like what I thought I was meant to do. Like you can kind of see in the film that she wasn't, super confident with herself yet. And like she, they're talking a lot about like purpose and art. And she's like, I don't know if I have it in me to be an artist. And that was very much where I was at that time. And yes, I was inspired by, films like Blue is the Warmest Color, which is like a French film that is like very naturalistic and you're very much in like the female gaze throughout the film, and she's very lost. And I think like I think I gained a lot of inspiration from like Before Sunrise, Blue is the Warmest Color, The Dreamers. That's another one of my favorite movies because I had just came back from France and I just like experienced, like kind of like I experienced very similar things to that guy where I was like very enamored by France and French culture and would fall in love and get hurt and be in like these weird, triangles. Like I totally get what he was going through. And so I think films like that really shaped like the taste at that time. And I think now it's different because I think now, especially after making this and seeing this film and being able to view myself from a different perspective, because it was definitely like even my best friends are like, this is you, like at the time, like this was you. And so now I feel like a lot, it's been 2 years since I wrote it. It's been a year since I made it. And a lot has changed, and time really does make you mature. And I think creating art, if that's what you want to do, like it really does help to heal you. And I saw that through this project, like it 100% did make a huge difference for me. Yeah, I mean, it was really hard. Like this was a really hard movie to make. And actually, when I was thinking of which short film I wanted to make first as like my first like, director debut, I had another script that I like gave my producer, and she was like, "Yeah, this is good, but like I don't know, like do you have anything that's like meatier and more vulnerable?" And I was like, "Okay, like I wrote something, because I kind of like word vomited like the beginning kind of bones of this piece." And she read, the first draft, and she was like, "This is like what you need to make." And I was like, "Really? Like I don't want to tell this. Like this is like more like I just did it more for like therapeutically." And she's like, "No, no, 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 like it has to be this." So then I had to take a screenwriting class, and it was a really intensive screenwriting class that I took, where you had to like share with like six other writers and the teacher, and like he would do a lot of like it felt like art therapy, because he was also studying art therapy at the time. So he would, put me in the role of the guy, and I'd have to like think about the perspective of him. And so like writing was really hard, was really, 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 really hard. But then once I kind of but then I started loving writing through that process, but it was very challenging. And then I think when we got into casting and I was working with the actors, I spent a lot of time with the actors, like individually, together in rehearsal. And I think, that was hard, because they had to ask me all these questions, and they were like, "Wait, like, when I was working with Zane, he played Danny. We got really close during that time, because he was just like, "I don't like this guy." Like his internal, like, like all the things, like, but he's like, but then as time went by, he was able to understand like why he was this type of guy, and why he like, treated her like this. And same with Floor, like because the actress, she's incredible. They're both incredible, but working with Floor as well, and she, didn't really quite relate exactly, that like she hadn't really gone through it in the same way that I had, but she was able to like empathize. And she, so I think having those conversations with the actors were beautiful, but of course challenging. And I had to relay that to every department head, from like my cinematographer to like, it was like a constant conversation that I was having, which was difficult. And then of course, when you're on set, like recreating these moments, like it's hard. I mean, like, I think when I was on set, like I was very much in like director mode, but of course there was moments where I would like I did tear up with my DP at a couple moments, just because like, we were emotional, because we were like, "Oh my gosh, like we got like, the scene looks exactly how we wanted to," but the performances were so good at certain points, especially with Floor, that it would make me emotional, because I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy." So I think it was hard. And even when we started getting into the editing, and like, I remember when we did like my first like director's cut of the film, I cried, because I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like really beautiful, but it's like emotional, and it hits me." So I think there was a lot of moments where it was like empowering, and then there was moments where it was really like painful. And even now, like I think sharing it with the world is really hard still for me, but it's the next step for me to really overcome, being afraid of being seen, and not caring what people are going to think of my art, is like important.
I feel like I've just been in LA too long. I feel like everybody is the same here, except you. I don't know. There's something about you. You're different. You're special.
So I think the general inspiration was very much like, I think I'm one of those creators who I'll just like get an idea, and like just like immediately kind of like, you know, be so like, I remember when I wrote this, it was like a Sunday afternoon in Venice, and I had just had like a wild weekend, and all these things were happening in my life, and I had just moved to LA, and like and I had like a painful experience, and I just thought, okay, I'm gonna go. And I went to like my favorite coffee shop in Venice, and I just like sat there for hours, and I was just like crying, like writing it all down. And so I think that was kind of my process, was just like, I wasn't even thinking, oh, I'm gonna make this. It was more just, I wanna, like, I feel this so deeply, like, let me just get this out. And I had ideas for scenes, and I had, and it was really interesting, because like it still opened the way that I wrote it. Like I wanted it to incorporate therapy. And oh, that's the thing, I just had started going to therapy at the time. So I was very introspective, and I was fascinated by the process of therapy. And then like I felt like I was analyzing myself, and yeah, because this was 2 years ago. Like I started writing this 2.5 years ago, I think. Yeah, it was like 2022 in August, I believe, is when I like started writing this. And then, like I said, I tucked it away and I didn't think about it for a couple months. And then maybe like 8 months, actually, I had just like left that like initial script alone. And then it was, push from my best friends / producers from work who were like, no, this is like, this is meaningful. Like people are really gonna relate to this. And so it was their encouragement. I don't think I would have made it if I didn't have like the support that I did. And then from there, I mean, I want to thank Ashley and Alex. Like Ashley is one of the producers, and Alex was a producer and the editor, and like they're both like one of my closest friends in LA now, who I met at my last job. And Alex was, especially working with someone who knows me so well, and her being the editor, I think that's really where we found the story. And I think that's why I have so much respect for editors, and like having an editor that you really trust and really being involved in the editing process, because like you'll have all this footage, but like ultimately like you and your editor are going to be the ones that really like put it together, because there were so many different ways we could have made this movie just in the editing room. And so I think that she really like helped me, and we really helped each other during that process of like finding the sweet spot and like the original script, but also like, okay, like, oh, I kind of see like this needs to change, and okay, we can cut this and we can add this montage and music. I worked with an amazing composer, Felix Gabriel, who is amazing. That was one of my favorite aspects. I think the editing, DP, and working with the DP and then working with the composer were like my favorite departments. Like I loved all of the departments I worked with, but I think those were like, just in terms of the people, like working with Kojima, she was the DP. She was incredible. Like it was just like I tried to pick a lot of women as much as possible to work with on this film. And Felix is a guy, which is fine. But like I had like a conscious thought of like trying to, especially with my cinematographer, I wanted her to be a woman, because I wanted the lens to be, very specific. And, I wanted it to be like a woman setting, the kind of getting the lighting and, how she's going to position the camera to tell the story. So I think I found it along the way. I mean, it truly is like a collaborative art form. And that's what I love so much about filmmaking, is that it's super collaborative, and you have to be open, you have to listen to other people, and you have to build those relationships, because you both want to feel safe to do the best work you can, for that story.
I have noticed this pattern where you put men on a pedestal before you really get to know them. And I am concerned that this spark you're feeling could just be your body responding to the anxiety that's caused by these avoidant partners.
Well, I think it was, I just had this moment, and it's on the behind the scenes video, but it was a moment where we wrapped and I went upstairs, because like all the cast was upstairs, because we were shooting in a 2-story apartment. And I was just like tearing up with like, the actress and the girl who was playing, the girl who was playing the therapist, Jessie. I'm not forgetting her name, Jessie, but I was with Alex and Jessie, and we were just crying. And like, I think we had just wrapped, and it was like a really long, it was like a long shoot, and it was emotional, and it was hot, and I was sweating, and it was just like, it was such a good moment. And Flor was just so grateful, because this was like her, like one of her first like big dramatic roles that she did. So she was feeling it, and she really like killed the performance. Like I think she did an incredible job. And so I was just emotional. I was like, oh my gosh, we did it. And I was still on the high of, being on set the whole weekend and just seeing everybody pour their like entire, energy and time and, sweat and blood and tears into this film at that point. So I think I was just so grateful that it had all come together. Like, yeah, I think the moment we wrapped was like very surreal for me, and like I was really emotional and excited, and I was like scared. I was like, oh no, now like the whole post-production process is coming. But I really enjoyed post-production. Actually, I thought it might be one of my favorite aspects is like post-production. I think it's really satisfying and more peaceful than like, when you're raising money, and then pre-production is crazy, and then production, you're still like present. And I think once we finally got into post-production, I could kind of take a deep breath and be like, okay, we have like time to like, get this right.
So what's your story?
Well, it depends.
What do you mean?
What version do you want to hear?
There's different versions.
Well, it was interesting because like I had auditioned quite a few girls, and I think when I saw Floor, I understood how casting worked just from that experience. I was like, oh, I get it. It's really a feeling that the filmmaker gets, where it's like, yes, the other girls were incredible, but like this just felt like Nina. And so I think once I, gave her that role, like I very much believe like you really just give it to them. And of course, like we had a lot of conversations, and I would give her notes, and we did a lot of rehearsal. So I definitely am someone who likes rehearsing. Like we did a lot of rehearsing with Zane because I wanted it to feel supernatural, but she was so professional that, I mean, she always came super, like she knew all the lines, she knew exactly how she felt about things. So like once we were, playing around with things, like it would just be more like me, like, giving her a secret or telling him something that she doesn't know, or like kind of surprising them, or I would get a little bit more serious, or maybe like stop. Like, you kind of learn like what each actor needs. Like some people need a lot of compliments, and like that's totally fine. I love giving compliments. But, if you kind of see like, oh, okay, they're kind of like, not as emotional as I want, then maybe I need to get a little bit more serious. Or some people need a little bit more of like a caretaking energy. So I think you begin to kind of know how to work with your actors and spend a lot of time with them. So yeah, I think with Floor, it was very much a lot of conversations about, she asked me a lot of questions. She asked me a lot of questions about the character. I told her, like, I gave her references to different movies and like styles of acting that I really liked. But overall, like she had it. Like she really knew what I wanted. And I think she studied me a little bit.
What was this poem about? It sounds like it was really important to you.
Well, it was about this guy that I met 2 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the challenges were money, like never having enough money. But I think once we kind of got to our budget and we're, I think especially with our camera team, I think, my DP was always like, but I want this and I want this. And I totally get it. You want all these like amazing things. But you start standing firm, and you're like, okay, what do you really need? And then, we ended up using everything that we needed. So I think just financially, you learn to kind of, I think that was really cool, is to like, you can make really good things for not crazy amounts of money. It's 100% possible. And so I think, people are always going to be worrying about the money, but I think I was really grateful because I think we had raised like 6,500 within like a month, which was crazy. So that was amazing. We raised enough money. So we did pay our crew, which was awesome. And we paid for food and our, rates and all that. But other than that, like and we paid for one location. So it was very much like, and production design is huge. So I think like I began to learn the value of these things, because like I remember there was a moment where I was like talking to my DP, and I was like, oh, we don't need production design. And she was like, we need production design. And I'm so grateful to her because then I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right, because it's everything in the frame. And so you learn, like I was being like, I was thinking, no, we don't need that. Like we need to use it for this. But then she was like, no, we don't need that. Like, it was just like so fascinating to learn like what you actually should prioritize for each film. And each film is going to be different in like what you prioritize. But I think those were the challenges, were just like those hard conversations on like where the money's going to go, the rate, all those kinds of things. Those were the challenges.
Spawn of the dragon, I'm fire, enticing you with my light and rare beauty. But don't touch me. Don't fucking touch me. I will hurt you and your ego and everything you think you are. I'm everything, but I'm not yours.
Yes, I'm definitely, yes, we have a music video coming out, like today, I think. It's coming out today.
Oh.
So, and I'm actually really excited about this music video because it's an homage to Before Sunrise. But yeah, we just had a music video that came out that I directed with Alex, I think like 3 weeks ago, and it's on my Instagram. Like I did a collab post with the artist, but we have another music video coming out either today or tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure, but this weekend. And this one's like one of my favorite music videos. I think it's my favorite of the two videos. And so yeah, I'm going to continue doing more music videos. I want to get into the commercial space. So I'm planning on doing like a spec commercial sometime this winter. And I, of course, am writing, I'm writing a feature, and I have a pilot that I'm working on. So yeah, it's going to continue from here, and I will see what happens.
But I'm child of the wind. I dance with my ancestors like the breeze surrounding you, not touching you, but you can feel me on every hair of your body.